Hi. Um, Happy Thursday, I think. I believe it's Thursday. It's like 3 days. Um, since my baby girl, she is much better today. Thank you for all your wishes and concerns. Her ear infection was pretty terrible, and she is doing much better now. So just give me a second to figure this out because we're testing different platforms for the lives, and this is now the Helena Papa's page. So this is now the business page, and we are doing other types of marketing in, of course, Facebook groups, and then on Instagram. You can follow me there on Helena Papas. And yeah, I hope you guys can see me and hear me fine. You just do this. Is this better? Is this better? Okay, let's do this. So, yes. So I'm just gonna give it a second if anybody, wants to pop in and say hi. Just came from a walk. It's really hot today in my hometown. It's like super humid as well. Therefore the hat. And yeah, I just took my daily, I do walks at least once or up to like 3 times if needed. Some of them are more like, shorter ones, and then you have walks, like there's like a lot of nature around here. So I love that part as well. But yes, so for those of you who don't like know me at all, my name is Helena Paper, and I decided to do lives in June because this is my birth month, and we'll see how I go and kind of enjoy this journey. And the intent is to share some of my life stories and kind of like invite you to become more vulnerable with your own life stories in that positive and kind of like building up and kind of like helping people to rise up, right? Because that's just something that I want to do. I love doing that, and I have time because uh, Ariela at home and she's reading like the fifth or the sixth book in like 2 days, and she is just she's just the best. So I love her so much. So yes, Helena Pepish, and basically what I do, very short, because I'm not going to go into the business in that sense, but it's like I help people discover their own genius. I have my own method of work that helps people uncover their own kind of like genius gifts, which is kind of like a 4-step process. And how we do that is in the form of like a high ticket vehicle, and it's almost always a 5-figure kind of like offer that we're creating, whether it's a group program, whether it's like a one-on-one, whatever the desire of the client is. And with that, we then create whatever kind, like whatever type, whatever like whatever is your personal favorite, or whatever is kind of like the inspiration, how you want to do the launch, how you want to do the sales part. I support you in that. And so we have amazing, brilliant, crazy results, like 150 K in sales in like a matter of like 4 or 5 weeks of actually making sales, right? So uh, just from like 75 people who sign up for like this tiny little IG event, with my client who was a spiritual who was a spiritual psychology or energy psychology mentor, you can call it, or teacher, right? And then we had other like even more amazing results, like 350K in like 5 months, and 325K in like a year, like all, truly like massive leaps. And that's kind of like my genius. Like I help people go for those like 6-figure leaps. And that seems to be the thing that I'm like really, really good at. And I'm owning that. I'm proud of that. And, my clients are super, super happy to experience that, right? Because as we all know, it goes along with a lot of like inner work and positioning yourself from this brand new energetic vibrational, but also then signature offers are, something that shifts for you. So your branding is going to change, right? And so, how you interview your clients, to be working with your changes. And so it's kind of like it's all kind of like rising up and kind of like elevating your standards, and it's elevating how you show up more professionally in this online world or offline. We had amazing offline results as well, right? So whatever is your preference, right? Just, talk to me and we can figure it out. But so regarding the hat, because I have a few, I have many, but like one of the first hats, which was like the red bold hat that I sometimes wear in more like the winter time, it was actually from my mom. She was pretty stylish lady, a wife of an entrepreneur, right? My business owner, my dad, and she had such swag, right? She was amazing with that. But also on the other note, she was the one responsible for me to even like enter into the world of like inner growth and meditations, right? Because she was this very like short-tempered and like very like emotional, and always like having her emotion all over the world. And so for me, that like kind of like intuitive thinker, introvert, very sensitive to people's like energies, right? And kind of like it really influenced me, and I would get overly like emotional around her constantly, right? And it would just drain me because she was such a like there was like no barriers, right? Like to her expressing her emotion and just like sharing how she feels, and like often making people responsible for how she's feeling, kind of like not always owning it, right? And not always apologizing, like, and all the things, right? So it became quite a challenge to kind of like coexist with that kind of a person, especially when you're like me, kind of like very deeply introverted in the way you process things and the way you experience this world, right? And as a manifester, then you like want to be actively creating your reality. And so you always have this like pull or push, if you will, right? That, something needs to change, something needs to improve, something needs to be elevated, something, something is coming through, right? So all those like continuously and constantly just like changing and shifting, and kind of like transforming, like, and collapsing the old and kind of like creating the new, right? That's kind of like my life story, right? So it taught me a lot of like about inner worlds, and it taught me a lot about humans, and it taught me a lot about psychology, and it taught me a lot about transformational work, right? And that therefore, all my like life research and education since I was like a teenager, has been in that direction, right? But so my mom had this like I remember she had this like phase when she was being really like over the top and very like kind of like emotionally accusing and kind of like judgmental, and it was just like too much. And I've been reading about meditation at that point, and I was reading, I don't know, Louise Hay stuff and stuff like that, right? And all of a sudden, just like in the middle of like an argument, right? And I went back into my room, and I was just so upset, and I was just like so sad, and I was like, why don't I and my mom get along? Like, I would just love that so much, right? Like, why is she being like that? And, doing the whole victim stuff. And then it just kind of like dawned to me that I think I was like 14, right? It just kind of like dawned to me that, that maybe possibly I'm very much kind of like an active part, even though I was more passive, but that I'm, as well, that active part in co-creating that experience for her and for me. And that like the question, which was so odd, because I was like sitting in this lotus position, and I was like, what am I to do? Right? Like it was kind of like, it was not just like, oh, she's doing this to me, but it was kind of like, what can I do in, so that I can feel better, right? And it just kind of like came to me, was kind of like, meditate, right? And I was like, I'm not gonna meditate. I'm upset. Like, I'm really angry. Like, she doesn't like, she doesn't deserve me to get like all calm and, meditative, right? Like, she should, get her punishment. And like, I'm a very passionate person, right? Very fiery, right? Uh, and then the thing just kept insisting, and we just kind of like meditate, right? And just kind of like go into that, right? And so I sat and I just kind of gave into it and started meditating and just started pondering and started like observing my thoughts and kind of like being with myself and like all the feelings, that were kind of like residing inside of me at that point. and with the breathing and everything, right? Because also just like from sports, we know how to breathe, and I knew how to self-regulate in that way. And in a matter of like 20 minutes, I was like calm, and I was like so peaceful, and I was like having this experience of like no matter how turbulent the life on the outside gets, like that I have this like entry point, and that I can always kind of like enter the space of power within me and stop giving power to all this like circumstances and people, and people's opinions about me, or about like all the whole shebang of human experience, right? And I was like, it was such an like enlightened like moment. Yeah, I think I must have been 14. Yeah, that I was like actually amazed by it, because at that point I was only reading, from like about that from books, and I was reading about how to enter that state of like just kind of like observing your thoughts, but not like necessarily going with them, and not like react, right? And all of the things, right? And so it really helped me to see that there was like this other reality that could coexist within whatever kind of like chaos you can imagine, right? And so that was very helpful, right? And then um, I've been an avid meditator for a really, really long time. It's not like that I continued like when I was like 14. I didn't necessarily know how, or I didn't necessarily have like the discipline per se. But I got into the Chinese traditional medicine, massage, and therapies world. I think in my like when I was like 19 or something, and I met this wonderful friend there, and he was an avid meditator, a very calm, very like mature person, much older than me, and he actually started teaching me, and I was very impatient. Who can relate, right? But like, I was like, I wanted it, but I was just so impatient. I was like, why can't I just, like get to my own peace? And like, why does it have to last so long? Like, I couldn't, right? But he was just so patient and so kind with me. And so he taught me about meditation, different types of meditation, got me into more like, even more like spiritual and energy work. And it was just like remarkable, right? And so, um, I know everybody talks about like meditation, so like whatever that is for you, yes. But at the same time, you have to know how to enter that state where you can be meditative, right? Because if you think that meditating is thinking about like obsessing about your problems, or, kind of like regurgitating your thoughts, because we do that like 98% of our like conscious thinking is just something that we're repeating, right? So we are hardly ever having a new thought experience, right? So regurgitating on that, or just like repeating something like on and on, that's not a meditative state of being. Because often, I hear, for example, people who don't meditate, who are like, well, I go on my bike, or I go on my motorbike, or I go and do gardening. And it's like, yes, that's that's like some state of being, but like, what are you thinking then? Like, how is your, like, are you thinking about the problems, or are you really kind of like just letting it be? Are you truly just kind of like letting yourself go in that, so there's no ego, so there's no like um nobody kind of like, that you're kind of like clinging to that persona, or kind of like, kind of like identification of who you are, right? Because there's a huge benefit to the meditation, and whichever meditation like you want to be doing, you can do. I tried many, like, so you can do more dynamic ones, you can do like standing ones, you can do walking ones, you can do lying down ones, you can do sitting ones. Try them all. Like, it's fun, right? So just whatever. And so it really kind of like is the whole effect for me is to help me create the gap, right? Because the gap is to help me, and even sometimes if it's like after whatever, I have like a conflict or something with my, person, or my, daughter, for example, I have a conflict with her, but like very like a couple of minutes after that, I'm actually able to see, oh, this was like this, and this was like that, and this is what is happening, and this is my responsibility, and this is what she did. And like, just kind of like I'm able to discern much faster, and like with no judgment, and I'm able to see like this the higher truth of like what is happening, why is this happening, and what is the feeling behind it, and what is the lesson behind it, and do we need to have a conversation, what kind of conversation, right? uh, and that goes for everybody in my world, right? So people know that I'm very thorough. I can be very like a lot for some people because I'm very like thorough and kind of like very I keep my friends around for many, 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 many years, right? Because I truly deeply care, and am able to actually kind of like relate to, whatever people are going through, and I'm deeply like humbled, when people share their own experiences with me. But also at the same time, there's this thing, that just gets activated, and it's like, well, this is how you elevate this experience, or this is, how you can try something different, or this is how, what about this, right? And so this is kind of like where we get into this whole kind of like changing your reality, right? Because you don't want to be like repeating yourself, right? Like you don't want to be feeling stuck, you don't want to be feeling victimized, you don't want to be feeling like, oh, there's this like world happening and I have nothing to say and I have nothing to do. No, like you can be starting creating your own small, it can be the tiniest, but it does matter because your own reality is going to influence at least around 100, if not more. It depends how, spread in this world you are, right? Like it's going to influence at least 100 like people, that are in your existence, right? And so that's already impact. So that's already a lot of impact, actually, right? And so I would never minimize that, right? And so it is important how we be, it is important how we communicate. It is important how we apologize after we created, drama or conflict, and we become aware of it, right? And it is also important to have those people around you who are actually not afraid to call you out on things, who are actually quite available for mirroring, right? The thing, and who are not afraid to go deep with the emotional stuff, and kind of like express their or the array of the feelings, right? Because it's not just like one, right? And so the truest kind of like emotional intimacy is like when we feel safe in ourselves enough, right? That we feel okay with expressing whatever, and not having others like uh kind of like influence that, but be with our own truth, and then see the response and kind of like reflect on that, and whatever your kind of like way of doing this is, because we all have like different ways, we're all like different people how we go about it, right? But so we also kind of like need to learn that about ourselves, because until you really truly know yourself and how you are thinking and feeling and responding and relating and being in a relationship, or being in business, or being with clients, right? Or being with the kids, right? Like you don't really know, what even like you would be elevating, or what would be the best way to kind of like um help you create more impact in your own personal world or in the business or whatever, right? And so this is kind of like just where, being honest, and kind of like um wanting to find that being inside of yourself, that it's the highest version, and kind of like see how you can align with that the best way, the best way possible, and as many times per day is needed. And that's where that's the standard, I would say, right? That it's never going to be like, we're never going to be achieved into that standard, right? But it's kind of like the compass, right? For any human, and for any kind of like behavior that you want to be, because that inner being, however you want to call that, is actually the GPS, where you can kind of like find your own ethic and morals and standards and values, and what aligns with you. Because that's, again, it's so very different. Like my values and my morals and my ethics and how I go about the world and how I be in the world is very different than any of you's, right? So we have to like learn to appreciate that, and learn to be soft around that, and learn to like whenever we're like judging somebody, and we're judging all the time, because like that's just what the brain does, right? But it's like to be mindful of that, right? And to be softer on that and to be more kind with ourselves. Because if you're judging and, somebody outside of yourself, you're basically judging that inside of yourself. That's just like psychology, right? But it's also kind of like it's showing you that when you're like jealous of somebody, when you're like criticizing somebody, is like it's always kind of like just the best and the fastest way of like returning to yourself and being like, what am I being afraid of? Why am I being jealous of this person, right? Because the most surprising answer that I got on that question for me was because I really truly just wanted what they were having, whether it was like an experience, whether they were having fun, whether they were having like something that I thought it was just so amazing, right? And it was just like, I want that too, right? And so then I had to go and figure out, how to go about it, right? And take the experience, the journey with the good and with the excitement and with all the experiences and growth and learn from it, right? And that's that's how I go about the world, right? See what I do? She's having hiccups. I'm just checking in if she's okay. So, yeah, so that was my share for today. I'm not going to be too long. I don't even know how long this was. Leave me comments, like connect with me. We're on Facebook, like my personal Facebook profile. You can reach me there. Share your thoughts with me. I would love to hear from you, right? You can find me on Instagram, Helena Papas, and just like let's make this June like the most self-loved and kind of like let's make this whole year about that, right? About self-love and how we can show up for ourselves so much more and in so much like more kinder and more empathic ways, and also like how we can like use that then to create this much better reality for all of us, right? Because remember, you are impacting not just yourself but like everybody around you as well. Okay, so much love to you. Thank you for watching. Bye.